Remember Bobby's World, the iconically cute 90s cartoon? If you don't, you may find yourself rediscovering some memories of this unique show that premiered over 30 years ago. I present to you Bobby's World, Inside the Mind of a Child. Bobby's World was a trailblazing cartoon that starred a highly imaginative 4-year-old, Bobby Generic.
That's generic! Generic!
Oops, my bad. The episodes of Bobby's World, which revolve around Bobby's fairly large family, are shown through the perspective of Bobby Generic. In this way, the Bobby's World cartoon is a type of examination into the inner workings of the mind of a child and how they experience life in such a, well, inexperienced way. Bobby will frequently misunderstand figures of speech.
We're gonna scrub this house from top to bottom. And we're gonna make it sing, don't you know?
A singing house?
And other phrases he's never heard before, such as in the Ring Bear episode, when his mom says her cousin is marrying a Navy SEAL. Bobby's dad responds to his mom by saying her cousin looks like an old shoe, continuing to confuse little Bobby, who has no idea what a Navy SEAL is, or even what it means to call someone an old shoe. I didn't before watching this episode. Bobby's older brother, Derek, frequently corrects Bobby for such mistakes in downright rude ways.
Know what they do to scaredy cat crybabies on airplanes?
What?
They make them ride outside.
Outside?
On the wings.
The wings?
His teenage sister, Kelly, does not take pleasure in correcting Bobby for silly mistakes, but she is kind of mean nonetheless, and is definitely neglectful towards him.
Bobby, wait till I get my hands on you!
While Bobby has complicated relationships with his older siblings, he seems to relate to his Uncle Ted the most, a prominent character in the Bobby's World cartoon, voiced by the late comedian Tino Insana.
The person who takes care of all these animals is called the farmer.
Bobby relates to Uncle Ted because they have a shared sense of adventure and childishness. In this way, his mom's brother acts as Bobby's best friend, aside from his parents, Martha and Howard. Uncle Ted and Bobby have been on many adventures, from going to a museum, camping in the backyard, and accidentally going to Las Vegas? Yep. In Season 3, Episode 9 of Bobby's World, Bobby phoned home. Uncle Ted, while babysitting Bobby, offers to drive the Generic family's housekeeper to a ride to a wedding that she doesn't have the means to get to, bringing Bobby along with them in the car. When the drive becomes longer than Uncle Ted expected, he struggles to find a phone to contact Bobby's parents. iPhones would have totally broken the plot of this episode if they were around in 1992. Little does Uncle Ted know that the wedding is all the way in Las Vegas. Meanwhile, Bobby's family is worried sick concerning the whereabouts of Bobby, but he eventually makes it home safe and sound. In a 1993 article by the LA Times about this very episode, one of the show's producers and storyboard artists, Gary Conrad, speaks about Uncle Ted and Bobby's relationship, calling Uncle Ted Bobby's favorite uncle. Gary Conrad would go on to direct the Fairly Odd Parents cartoon and has worked as an animation director at Disney Television Animation since 2017. But perhaps what is even more interesting is when Conrad speaks about Bobby's World having humor for adults? What? How could this cartoon that stars a 4-year-old also appeal to adults? It certainly was made to. A comedian and co-writer of Bobby's World, Jim Stahl, would also agree with Conrad, since he envisioned the cartoon as being suitable for kids and adults to enjoy together. This show appeals to parents and their kids by addressing real-world events that affect real-life people in positive and negative ways, such as when Bobby's dad got laid off from work and Bobby's mom, Martha, chipped in by earning money at the diner she used to work at, or every dad's unfortunately relatable experience of driving your less than quiet kids in the car, and overall portrayal of family life for the average or generic family. I can see how the dialogue between Bobby's parents could have appealed to adults, as it comes off naturally.
If you two don't settle down back there, I'm gonna pull the car over and I'm gonna let you out.
Oh, honey, I don't know why you say those things, because you know you never do it.
Bobby's World tackles concepts that are new to many 4-year-olds, from the concept of liking girls, as seen in the Bobby's Girl episode, overcoming fear, and even coming to terms with the death of someone he knew. All of those things make Bobby's World a pretty educational show. This show also has a lot of funny jokes in it, jokes that sometimes, but not frequently, become a little too inappropriate on my appropriate to inappropriate scale.
Hey guys, feature the little mall rat. He wants us to meet his sister.
Yeah? What's wrong with your Arbuckle sister, kid? She's some kind of dog or something?
This is it, Bobby. I'm opening the hatch door. But remember, stay clear of her tentacles.
Okay. I thought only boys had tentacles.
Then again, these kinds of jokes aren't very common in this show, and your kids probably won't get it.
I'm just a little boy.
The fact that Bobby's World is from the perspective of Bobby Jenerick and is an authentic representation of family life meant that it was ahead of its time in the year 1990, especially because it debuted on television almost exactly a year before the Rugrats debuted, a popular 90s cartoon that was also written from the perspective of a small child. But I think that in order to understand what makes Bobby's World so unique, we must take a look at the cartoons that kids were watching before Bobby's World. In this article from September of 1989 by the LA Times, titled TV Reviews, Saturday Morning Cartoons Offer Good Reason to Sleep In, the author and animation critic Charles Solomon balks at the current Saturday morning cartoons. However, he begins by praising the cartoons of previous years. He states, quote,
"Over the past few years, Saturday morning cartoons have undergone a minor renaissance. The appearance of the Gummy Bears, My Pet Monster, a pup named Scooby-Doo, and the adventures of Winnie the Pooh seem to promise a happier era of higher standards in children's programming. But the new shows for the 1989-1990 season, which debuted on the past 2 Saturdays, break that promise."
He then goes on to describe that these new cartoons suggest a return to the bad old days of the 70s, when, quote,
"Storytelling and cartoons vanished like the vitamins Uncle Ben supposedly sealed into rice, and animation meant images that were drawn rather than images that moved."
But were the shows that debuted those past 2 Saturdays in 1989 really as horrible as he makes them sound? Let's take a look at a few popular cartoons of 1989 that specifically debuted on September 9th and September 16th, meaning they are very likely the cartoons Charles Solomon was referring to. But in order to do so, we must take a trip down memory lane. Let's go to 1989. It's later September, and you just woke up really early in your Batman pajamas, instead of sleeping in like any sane person does on a Saturday. But not you, you're on a mission. A brand new Game Boy rests on your bedside table. You just got it in August for your 8th birthday. But today is not the day for childish video game action. No, your mission is to watch the legendary Saturday morning cartoons. You rush downstairs as songs from Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation album play from the stereo in your older sister's bedroom. Teenagers just don't know what they're missing on Saturday mornings. As you step off the staircase, your eye catches that the couch is empty. Empty couch equals TV all to yourself. You grab the remote and turn on the TV, full of expectations. A show called Captain N the Game Master, which debuted on September 9th, 1989, flashes onto the screen. This show is about a teenager who teleports to Videoland, where Nintendo characters live, through his TV. This show had a total of 3 seasons and 34 episodes, which isn't that terrible. Keep in mind that there were only a couple of channels on TV for most middle to lower income households at the time, so entertainment options were limited. Even though you're a fan of Nintendo, you get kind of bored eventually and change the channel. You watch the Karate Kid cartoon series, which debuted on September 9th, 1989, and had a sad total of 13 episodes. It unfortunately does not include the original movie actor Ralph Macchio as the voice of the karate student Daniel LaRusso. What the heck is that all about?
Nice technique, Mr. Miyagi. That ought to keep him busy for a while.
you change the channel again. You start watching Camp Candy, starring famous comedian John Candy as the camp leader, voiced by Candy himself. Take that, Karate Kid! This show lasted for 3 seasons, ending in 1992, which I consider a pretty good run on television. You keep watching since you recognize John Candy's voice from that movie Uncle Buck, that also had that little blonde kid in it. His career is probably never going anywhere. You go grab some cereal while the episode finishes. And once you come back, the California Raisins cartoon, which debuted on September 16th, 1989, starts playing. You've watched these raisins before, and they're hilarious and unforgettable stop-motion commercials. After you've seen about 10 minutes, you change the channel once again to see the Beetlejuice cartoon based on the Beetlejuice movie, which first aired on September 9th, 1989 and ran for 4 seasons. But then you hear your family walking down the staircase towards the TV. Then everyone, except you, starts fighting over who gets access to the TV remote. You decide that playing your Game Boy is a better option. I can see why Charles Solomon may have disliked the cartoons I just mentioned. The Karate Kid, Captain N the Game Master, and Beetlejuice are all based on pre-existing intellectual properties. Camp Candy stars and advertises John Candy, a comedian, and the California Raisins advertises, well, raisins. Of course, there were many other popular Saturday morning cartoons children watched in 1989, from DuckTales to Garfield and Friends and the Muppet Babies. However they may differ, Bobby's World stands apart from them for one important reason. Bobby Generick, a normal kid who is an authentic representation of the show's most important audience, small children. Perhaps the reason Bobby's World is able to authentically depict a 4-year-old is because the show's official creator was already a dad at the time. He's from Toronto, Canada. He's kind of loony. He's Howie Mandel, the stand-up comedian who played a zany, borderline psychotic character on stage, appeared for the beginning and end of every Bobby's World episode, via green screen in a cartoon environment, similar to how Steve Burns did in Blue's Clues. He played Bobby's dad in these live-action segments, interacting with Bobby in comedic conversation. This is how he basically hosted the show, and I think it's a great way to do it.
Bobby!
What?
Bobby!
What?
Bobby!
That's my name.
Mandel's comedic and neurotic body language was a crucial aspect of his stand-up comedy routine, and you can clearly see that in the live-action segments of this cartoon that Mandel incorporated a more toned-down version of the movements he used on stage, at least in the earlier seasons of Bobby's World.
We're back. I mean, it's another show. It's another show, brand new show. I'm Howie, this is Bobby's World. I'm very, very, very excited about this particular show because I've seen it.
Oh my God, bro. Oh, hell no, man.
Howie Mandel rose to fame as a stand-up comedian in the 1980s, first performing on the fly at Yuck Yucks Comedy Club in Toronto, Canada in 1977. Mandel was at Yuck Yucks on a Monday midnight, when the club let anyone in the crowd go on stage and perform a comedy act. After being encouraged by a friend, Mandel walked onto the stage, feeling incredibly nervous. In his distressed state, he yelled, "What?" repeatedly at the crowd, and they parroted him, laughing at his distress. In this first performance, the probably drunk audience would witness for the first time what would become one of Howie Mandel's signature jokes. Mandel had the idea to take a rubber glove from his pocket, pull it over his head, and inflate it. The audience loved it, and Mandel would continue to perform the trick in his early comedy career.
I realize this is very upsetting for you. That's why I've invited Howie Mandel to lighten the mood by blowing up a surgical glove with his nose.
But why would Howie Mandel just happen to have a rubber glove in his pocket? Doesn't that sound planned? Nope. According to Mandel, he carried around rubber gloves because of his germ phobia. But that's a whole other story we don't need to address in this video.
Handrails are my enemy. I never go near a handrail. I won't open those things. I would never serve myself. I wouldn't touch this because a lot of people have touched that.
Mandel was not considering becoming a stand-up comedian when he was asked by the comedy club to come back and do another performance, or at least prior to his first performance at the club. However, Mandel never passes up an opportunity, and would perform his first feature-length act at Yuck Yucks, titled Howie Mandel, Borderline Psychotic, in 1977. Howie Mandel would appear on the Merv Griffin talk show in 1982 and make many TV appearances. Famously around this time, Gene Simmons, the lead singer of the hard rock band Kiss, saw Mandel on the Merv Griffin show and personally called him to ask if he wanted to be the opening act in his girlfriend's show, none other than the famous singer Diana Ross. Howie Mandel also acted in TV shows and movies throughout the 1980s, which included playing Dr. Wayne Fiscus in the 1982 hospital drama TV show Saint Elsewhere, and even starred in a 1987 comedy film called Walk Like a Man, playing a man who was raised by wolves his entire life and must adjust to human life and behavior. What's even crazier is that the main character's family is very wealthy, and he is supposed to receive an inheritance of $30 million. Sadly, this movie has a very mediocre audience score of 52% on Rotten Tomatoes. I've never seen it, but I like the trailer. Mandel also acted in a rather forgotten 1982 comedy variety show called Laugh Tracks, which included comedian Gail Mathias, who previously acted on season 6 of SNL, which ran from 1980 to 1981. Gail Mathias would go on to voice act Bobby's mom, Martha Generick. Did you know you can hear her use what sounds just like Martha Generick's voice in this skit from her SNL days?
Doing hair is only half of this G-darn job.
Laugh Tracks was hosted by Jim Stahl, another comedian connected to Bobby's World. Stahl was one of the two people that pitched the idea of doing a cartoon which would become Bobby's World to the Film Roman Animation Studio. The other person who pitched the concept with Stahl was Jim Fisher, a fellow comedian who was part of a touring comedy trio with Stahl known as The Graduates, that also included Tino Insana, the future voice of Uncle Ted. According to Jim Stahl, while on a podcast called Couch Candy, hosted by none other than John Candy's daughter, Jennifer Candy, told her that him and Jim Fisher told Film Roman about Howie Mandel, who did what Stahl described as a Bobby character.
My name is Bobby.
Film Roman accepted, and the show was then pitched to Fox. Bobby's World would become the first notable cartoon on the Fox Kids network, which would become wildly successful. Both Stahl and Fisher would work on Bobby's World, with Stahl being a co-writer and Fisher helping to develop the show for television in various ways, according to IMDb.com, which lists writing, directing, producing, and acting credits, among others. From the perspective of Howie Mandel, he was a comedy club act when Fox asked him to do a Saturday morning cartoon. Mandel says, in a 2018 Entertainment Weekly interview, quote,
"I didn't know how to write what I believed was for Saturday mornings.
He's talking about cartoons.
So I just wrote things that happened to me and my kids, and it was all real, and it happened to work, yeah."
It makes perfect sense to me that Howie Mandel may have been kind of clueless regarding the usual storytelling found in Saturday morning cartoons of the time period. I assume he didn't watch them, and on top of that, Mandel was not a family-friendly comedian, so the concept of him having his own Saturday morning cartoon seems insane, at least in our current media landscape. However, comedians starring in their own cartoons was a trend of the 90s, with shows such as Life with Louie and Camp Candy being notable examples. Even Ace Ventura had his own cartoon, although the original actor, Jim Carrey, didn't voice him. If Mandel didn't watch Saturday morning cartoons with his daughter Jacqueline, no wonder Bobby's World wasn't influenced by its incredibly fantastical contemporaries. Howie Mandel not only played himself on the show via live action, but also voiced his fictional cartoon counterpart, Howard Generick and Bobby Generick.
That's me.
Wait. Does that mean Howie Mandel was actually talking to himself?
I am schizophrenic and so am I.
The iconically cute voice of Bobby Generick, invented by Howie Mandel, existed long before the Bobby's World cartoon debuted on television. According to him, he first uttered Bobby Generick's voice while choking on a piece of cake at 11 years old, and it wasn't funny in the slightest.
Help me!
Yeah.
And everybody was laughing, and I was dying. It's not funny.
They were dying of laughter while you were dying.
No, it's not.
Prior to Bobby's World, Bobby's voice was used by Mandel to voice the famous character Gizmo in the 1984 Gremlins movie, and the character Skeeter in the 1984 Muppet Babies cartoon.
We can pretend, can't we?
I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to hear Gizmo's voice the same after this.
The only way to break Beaker's fear of the dark is to show him how much fun the dark can be.
At this point, you may be asking, okay, the show sounds great, but did audiences in 1990 actually care about this show? Our answer is found in the same Entertainment Weekly interview of Howie Mandel I talked about earlier. In the article, Mandel describes the success of Bobby's World, stating that it ran 84 episodes and had 65 countries in syndication. From the sources I've looked at, which include IMDb.com, Bobby's World had 81 episodes. Curious. Bobby's World ran for an impressive 7.5 years on television, beginning on September 8, 1990, and ending on February 23, 1998. In a circa 2007 interview with the founding president of Fox Kids, Margaret Lash, Lash believed Bobby's World to be among the outstanding Fox Kids cartoons, which in Lash's opinion include The Animaniacs, Batman, Spider-Man, and Life with Louie. If I were a kid in 1990 watching Bobby's World, I would probably relate to Bobby in the way he thinks and experiences life in some way. From his daydreaming sequences that frequently reflect the current events of Bobby's life to his relationships within his family. Just compare Bobby's World to cartoons such as Captain N the Game Master or DuckTales. How could any kid relate to these characters' unrealistic lives, many of whom aren't even human? On the other hand, I know someone who I know for a fact related to Bobby Jenrick in 1990. My dad. My dad was around 8 years old when this show came out, and he has pointed out parallels between his childhood and Bobby's. From them being a similar age, to kind of looking like each other, and being the youngest of 3 kids.
Everything down here looks like a lump of scuzz. Beat it, dork!
However, Bobby's World's somewhat painful realism also means that it somewhat ceases to be what I think many kids watch cartoons for. Entertainment, yes, but also an escape. An escape from school, or chores, or perhaps mean older siblings. But what if you turn on the TV wanting to escape hardship through animated fantasy, only to see a little boy with a cartoony appearance get called a dweeb by his older brother? Fantasy diminished. While Bobby's World is not your regular dopamine-heavy cartoon in this sense, it strikes a wonderful balance between imagination and real-life hardship, which makes it very appealing and stand out among its contemporaries. Not only does the show have wonderful writing and characters, it also has an amazing theme song by John Tesh. So, what do you think about Bobby's World? Have I refreshed your memory? If you want to learn about other 90s cartoons, check out our documentary, video on the X-Men and our video on the Rugrats. See you later, dudes!